The one change is really how retailers are not communicating properly about price increases. Every consumer today is very nervous as the price of ground beef and everything that comes in cans and every other food product has gone up substantially since the pandemic. So the one surprise to me is the fact that retailers, grocery retailers, haven't taken the opportunity to really communicate properly to consumers why these prices are going up. As a result, consumers are pointing a finger at retailers, and it's not the retailers who are making these margins.
I think the thing that surprised me the most this year was just the impact that facial recognition is having on the industry. So when you look at loss prevention and the challenges that people have faced with loss prevention, when somebody comes into the store that's honest shopper, in a grocery, they may come in twice a week. They come into one store, they might go to two stores. But if it's a dishonest shopper or somebody that's stealing from you, they're going to go to many stores. They're going to go 6, 7 different stores. So that facial recognition technology can dramatically decrease the losses that are occurring, particularly at self-checkout, but also in the lanes as well.
You know, I think in terms of changes, I think the biggest shift has seemed to be the real push for value. You know, it's always been an important part of grocery, which is, you know, are you delivering value to their customers? But I think the rise of Aldi, the continued growth of Walmart, dollar stores continuing to expand, I think it's really put a lot of pressure on the more traditional players in the industry. And I think they've really struggled to respond. And so I wouldn't say that's a short-term trend. I think it's been going on for the last 5-10 years, but more than technology and other things, I think that shift has really shaken up the industry and has led to a lot of some of the moves you've seen some of the players make more recently.
The biggest thing that surprised me so far is how fast grocery online business is growing. Took off in the pandemic, died for a couple of years, not died, flatline, but the last 1 to 2 years, it's just accelerated, and Walmart is driving this. Their online sales are up 24% so far this year. It's almost a quarter of their business now. 1 in 5 shoppers at Walmart shop online now. And they publicly stated by 2030, 50% of their sales will be online. And so they're driving this massive change right now. They even got Amazon worried about it because Walmart has all the stores. 50% of that number is click and collect, pick up in the store. So buy online, pick up in the store. And Amazon doesn't have an answer for that. They've got some Walmarts, you know, they have their Whole Foods out there, but they really don't have an answer for that. But the biggest thing that's happening is Walmart's taking this online business from grocers, independent grocers, and they don't have a clue. The independent grocer and even some of the big players still rely on the Instacarts, the DoorDash, the Uber Eats, the marketplaces to run their business. And they've lost control of their customer, and they've lost control of their profitability, and they're not driving their business. They've handed off to these other places. And what's happening, and people don't see it, especially the independent grocer, is Walmart's just eating their lunch right now.
I spent my entire life in the grocery industry, and there's been a lot of changes over the last 20 to 30 years. I think in the last year, the biggest surprise is the role of AI as it's shifted from hype to practical use cases. And there's still a lot more to unfold over the coming months and years.
The biggest opportunity for retailers is to get closer to the consumer.
Loss prevention, getting their loss prevention under control, as that drops right to the bottom line. The second thing is computer-aided ordering, leveraging that with vendor managed inventory so that they are forced to comply to the space plan rather than just filling up the shelf to make it look like it's full. You can't replace vanilla ice cream with strawberry. You can't replace Coke with Coke Zero.
The real biggest opportunity, looking broadly, is around AI. I do think, while it can be overhyped, and it's certainly, we're in that area where everyone thinks like the world's going to be reshaped in 3 months. I do think that AI is a huge opportunity space for retail, particularly grocery. You think about better demand forecasting for perishables. You think of really getting a view of what's on the shelf to understand out of stocks. That's really information and insight we didn't have before. And I think that's going to allow grocers to be a lot more efficient, create a much better experience, much more streamlined operations, really in ways they haven't been able to do previously.
Take back your customer, without a doubt. You know, when the pandemic hit, everyone had the Instacart. That's what solidified Instacart, because it was the solution and you had to get online. that was the easy way. It's not about convenience or easy anymore. You have to take back your customer, right? You have to own your profitability. Ryan, last year alone, Instacart booked $1 billion in retail media. And the independent grocer and the other grocers, they could have had that money for themselves. So the key thing is, how do you take control of your customer? Take back your customer. You control that relationship. Don't give it to Instacart, DoorDash, or Uber Eats. And then take back your profitability. Control your profitability. And there's great solutions out there today like Local Express that allow you to put a white box e-commerce platform. Their capabilities are 10 times better than what you get at Instacart. And you're going to be able to have your logo. It'll look like your website, design it that you want. They have a patent pending on a data harmonization tool that we call Data Sync that'll make sure you've got pictures and descriptions for just about every single item out there. And the cool thing about Local Express solution is you will own your customer relationship. You actually take back the customer. You actually will control your profitability. So you get the Local Express e-commerce platform running. The data harmonization tool called Data Sync will make sure that you always have pictures. Anyone doing business with Instacart today will know that 30% of the pictures are missing, and Instacart doesn't have a solution for that. Local Express does. They have a great competitive price tool called Price Watch. They've got a great new program they're launching right now called Media Link, which allow you to do clipless digital coupons along with monetizing your assets, not giving it to Instacart anymore, but how you want to sell your search if you want to, how you want to advertise on your site, and even tie in your in-store media. So if you have TVs in store or digital billboards in store, the whole Media Link program ties that whole picture together. They've got a great suite of AI products. So whether it's the shopping assistant, or which allows customers to ask questions and build a bigger basket, or take a look at competition, there's this whole suite of AI tools that complement what Local Express has. So there's really no excuse anymore just to give your business control of your customer, your profitability to Instacart and the other marketplaces.
The biggest opportunity for grocery retailers is know your customer.
AI has some really great opportunities for grocers. Certainly, as we look at the backroom operations, but also from a consumer standpoint, being able to go to a website and say that I'm going to have a barbecue for 10 people. One person has a food allergy to meat. Another person is gluten intolerant. I don't want to spend more than $5 per person. And there's another person that's a vegan. And in a nanosecond, it can print out that shopping list for me and make it special.
Where it's really having an impact is in two areas. One is that loss prevention area and finding the areas of loss that can be anything from theft to just spoilage and shrink. That drops right to the bottom line. The second one that is having a major impact is in the area of just general operations when it comes to figuring out what items should be on the shelves and doing computer-aided ordering. So that you actually know what you have on the shelves at any one time.
You know, all grocers should be testing and experimenting with AI. I definitely think AI is a long game. This isn't something like if I'm not really redoing my whole business to be automated with agents in the next year, I'm out of business. That's really like a 5 to 10 year transformation. But I do think there are areas where AI can have impact now, whether you build it yourself or you look for a partner. You think about the shelf edge, right? And getting real-time information, or at least near real-time information on out of stocks and things like that. There are a range of companies like Ogmodo and others that are bringing solutions to the market that you can leverage, or you could be building some of your own depending on what you want to do. But I think the important thing is to start. I looked at some research not long ago, and it basically said that almost all successful AI projects had a failed AI project before it. So I think everyone should be trying it. I wouldn't get too caught up like, oh my God, I'm going to be out of business in a year if I don't have a fleet of agents running the place.
It's interesting. My buddy Walter Hogg did a survey of 30 companies, manufacturer CPG companies, and he asked them, is your AI working? Are you succeeding? And the definition was, you're able to build an agent and then operationalize it across the company and then actually see the impact to the P&L. 70% of the respondents said we are failing. And what's happening is everyone's out there building these agents. They don't have a home to sit. They got all these POCs going on. Everyone feels good about the dopamine release that comes from saying, hey, I've got an agent, look what it's doing. Yeah. No one can actually tie it back to, extend it across the company, operationalize it, and then can we see the impact of the P&L? And there's only 3 areas of the P&L you can impact: sales, margin, or expenses. You can also impact cash flow, right, which sits on the balance sheet. But 70% of the companies are struggling with understanding, can I really impact my P&L? So I think what we need to teach the people is there is a process to bringing AI to life. And it's not about building agents, building bots, and running POCs, but there's an entire process that has to be put in place along with the governance, how you're going to manage it, and then along with, okay, what is the synchronization layer that's going to happen where your agents sit on top of all your legacy systems. So there's one home for the agents, there's the right security, there's the right privacy. And what tends to happen too right now, Ryan, is with this failure, we get caught up with the chasing the shiny object, right? So we go out and buy the large language model, we go buy this, we go buy that. And you got to bring it back to what is your strategy and your plan, build that infrastructure as far as processes first, and how your company's going to operate. It's got to be cross-functional. Just can't be IT or an AI department driving it. And then how you're going to build your technology structure underneath with this synchronization layer, so all your agents sit in one spot and you have the right privacy, the right security, the right access, so that you can actually track all the work that you're doing and actually impact the P&L. And the other big thing, what happens is I think people go out there and just start building stuff versus saying what's most important. And we all start off with okay, what are my pain points right now? I'm having trouble doing creative over here for these ads. Can't get enough people. So we put someone over there. It's okay to start with the pain points because those are quick wins. But how are you going to use AI to drive your company strategy? And that's where it's got to tie in. So you tie into how I'm going to drive the company strategy. You get some quick wins with current pain points. And then you got to put the process in place. And then also the technology infrastructure to make it work. Your governance committee, which has to be cross-functional, manages the whole process to make sure that it's truly impacting your P&L.
We've seen a lot of impact across marketing. Think CRM, automation, and personalization. But the reality is AI can really help store operations and specifically labor management and in-stock and on-shelf availability.
Independent grocers have lots of challenges, competing on labor, competing on benefits, certainly buying power. So they're really under a lot of pressure. Their opportunity is not to try to compete with Amazon or Walmart. Their opportunity is really to build a personality to their store, the same way that Trader Joe's or Aldi has done, so that people want to go to that store, not to save money, but to have a great experience.
So when I think about the mid-size and smaller chains, it's not an all AI story. You really have to focus on those relationships that make you special. You're not going to out AI the Walmarts and the Krogers of the world, but that doesn't mean you don't deploy those technologies. You have opportunities in the area of reducing loss prevention, but on-shelf availability, making sure that you have what the customer wants to buy when they want to buy in that environment is key. It's absolutely crucial to you getting the results that you need.
I do think it's more of a challenge for the independent and regional grocers. They just don't have the depth of IT or engineering resourcing to do it. I do think like simple things can have high impact. So, imagine when I was at Kroger, we would all sit around the table looking at this last week's sales. And it would always be some question of like, well, why did sales go up in that market or down in that market? And, people would have their gut sense, but didn't really know. I think the ability with AI, even at a simple level, let me pull together all the various data that I have and then make it easy to ask those sorts of questions. Well, what really drove sales in Indianapolis last week? And I think if you switch it to the store, and this is where I think really for regionals and independents, there's huge value. I'm a store manager. I'm getting like 40 reports a day, who knows how many, right? Stuff's coming in from every direction. So simple AI tools that might just help me identify like, what are the key things I really need to be focusing on today to make my store more efficient? That could come from synthesizing just all the reports I'm already getting. It could come from maybe new data sources that are coming in, because of AI. But I think just making everyone's lives easier is where I'd start. Like, what are some of those, just the biggest headaches? And can AI make the life a little earlier? I think I know you've mentioned over the last few years, I think, you start at that kind of base, it then gives you the confidence and experience. Now I can go to things like demand forecasting, and maybe I have a better model for predicting like perishable replenishment, right? But I wouldn't start there because those are much thornier questions to really get your hands around.
Smaller grocers will continue to be challenged by larger chains simply due to scale and the size of footprint. I think smaller grocers should stay true to who they are locally and connect with their customers, and also focus on bringing to life experiences in store and in the digital space. These things should help set them apart from the larger national chains.
The one that's overhyped, in my opinion, are the robots that go up and down the aisles to take inventory. A lot of consumers see those, they want to take selfies with them, they get in the way. That's something that if you are going to have a robot, you put it on at night when the store is closed. You don't run that, during the day. The big opportunity for me is really being able to use AI intelligently, but for consumer benefits, not just for the back room.
I think in terms of the ones that have struggled, I think you can really look at something like micro-fulfillment as something that had huge promise and is really not delivered, right? Kroger wrote off a massive investment in Ocado that was building out these large things, but really nobody's quite figured out how to make robotics in the fulfillment work well. I think in some ways it's because the demand can be very variable based on every single market. And I think it's proven challenging. I am seeing some interesting companies trying to create much more nimble, smaller, robotics that might help pick in a store or help even replenish at the shelf that I think have a lot of promise. But I think that whole area turned out to be just way ahead of its time. I think on the underhooks, I actually really do think the shelf edge is a huge opportunity space. It always amazed me. And, I think people don't understand when you go in grocery, almost everyone will assume from the outside, grocers know exactly what's on the shelf at any moment, right? Of course you do. Why wouldn't you? The truth of the matter is they really have no idea. They know what went to the store and they know what's sold, but whether it's actually on the shelf exactly where it should be at that moment is hidden. And when you think about e-commerce growing, that's become a huge issue. If I order something online and then it turns out it's not there, and then you get into the substitutes and lost sales. And I think solving that problem is big. Like I said, the nice thing is there's a range of companies using computer vision, whether it's with a robot or, I mentioned Augmoto, right? They put a camera in the badge. There's people who use cell phones or images. There's a range of ways and price points, depending on what you need, you can use there. But I think that one to me is, while it gets a lot of attention, I think it is such a big impact. I think it's one, if I were investing, I'd be really looking to figure out how can I get more data at the shelf.
I think all of AI is a bit overhyped, but at the same time, I think it's potentially underfunded. So the question is, where will you get the biggest return for your investment? And then how do you prioritize and sequence all the various investments needed to run your stores?
What I found from when I talk to guys who own single stores, I think it's really hard to get good insights from their data. And a lot of times they even have some local guy who runs their IT for them and they don't even really know how to get access. I think if you had a simple tool that could take all the data that gets captured, whether or not you have a loyalty program, right? There's T-log data, there's inventory data. If you have a loyalty program, you have some of that customer data. Something I think that could use AI smartly to take it, really flag where there's issues. Maybe you're not priced well in one area, maybe you're losing sales in another area of the store. I think that kind of just helped me understand my business a bit better. Some guidance on where can I use best practices from some of those largest guys and bring it down to me to help me think through that. I think that would be huge. They just don't have the team, and they don't necessarily always have the time to really dig in. And that's where I do think AI could be a really interesting solve and helpful tool for them.
And what I would say is own your digital presence, right? And start with the e-commerce because Walmart's taking it right now. And most of the guys, right or wrong, Instacart's driving it for them right now. Take back your customer. Own your profitability, drive your business, right? And it doesn't matter what size company you are, you can do it. And it is a profitable venture now, especially when you partner with someone like Local Express and what we're doing here. But that's number one, because there's nothing in the grocery business that's growing at 24% except for e-commerce.
Yeah.
And Walmart's growing at 24%, and they want to be 50% online sales by 2030, which is now 4 years away, and they're going to get there. So if you don't do it, you're going to continue to lose business to Walmart and other people who catch up. But this whole world of digital, making sure your digital presence is spot on, it competes with Walmart, and then the customers are able to order online, pick up in the store, which is critical. 50% of those sales at Walmart are still pick up at the store. So you got to have that capability. Instacart and DoorDash cannot give you that capability. Local Express can. But getting your e-commerce correct right now is so important. And just think about this. We get excited in grocery when we're up 1 or 2% in sales. Online is growing at 24%. You can't ignore it anymore. You have to own it.
I think LinkedIn's the best way. It's Ken Fenyo, F-E-N-Y-O, and I publish regular podcasts and also newsletters. So definitely come check me out.
Reach out to me on LinkedIn, and then we can have a good conversation.
You can follow me on LinkedIn. I'm just at Art Sebastian, or you can get in touch with me by emailing me at art@nexchapter.com. That's NEXCHAPTER.com.